Welcome to another episode of the Financial Medicine Show. In this episode, we'll be talking about everyone's favorite substance, caffeine. Stay tuned! Hi everyone, I'm Elisa and this is Men, and we're here to chat with you guys about medicine and personal finance. So coffee is one of the most widely consumed drinks in the world. And I personally don't drink coffee, but I do drink tea. And I'm not talking about just milk tea, but also real teas with tea leaves. So we know 80% of adults in the United States consume some form of caffeine. And Americans especially love their coffee, consuming more than 400 million cups of coffee per day. You heard that right, per day, 400 million cups of coffee. And the average cost of a cup of hot coffee is around $2.70. But if you start to add in things like alternative milks, fancy whipped cream, sprinkles, and shaved coconut, it can be a lot more expensive. And that's such a booming market. And in America, we love our coffee, but in Asia, tea is preferred, accounting for over 75% of the tea consumption in the world. And I want to explore more about this magical substance called caffeine that gets people up and moving. So how does caffeine work?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Coffee and tea is the mostly consumed beverages in the world. But when we think about what is the most consumed psychoactive substance, it's caffeine. Remember that coffee beans and tea leaves have a lot of other chemicals and substances in there. It's not just caffeine. And when we think about health benefits of these coffee and tea, there are the polyphenols in these beans and leaves that gives us the health benefits. But today specifically, I want to focus on caffeine. Now, caffeine works by stimulating the central nervous system. It acts hand in hand with an important molecule called adenosine. Now, you have adenosine all over your body, and you also have adenosine receptors. Adenosine attaches to the adenosine receptors, and this can cause a lot of effects on the body, such as slowing your heart rate down. It can also make you feel more relaxed. So caffeine specifically, it acts as an adenosine receptor antagonist. What it does is that it blocks the effect of adenosine. So one way to think about this is when you go to sleep, your body kind of flushes out adenosine. When you wake up in the morning and as the day progresses, your body starts to accumulate adenosine over time. And by the time nighttime falls, then you feel groggy, you feel sleepy, and you're ready to sleep. This is the effect of adenosine on those adenosine receptors. Caffeine works specifically on the A1 and A2 adenosine receptors in the brain and the heart. So instead of adenosine making you sleepy at night, what caffeine does is that it blocks those receptors. And so what happens is that you feel alert, you feel energetic, and you felt like you haven't really slept at all. You felt like you can continue to keep on going. So remember, it's an adenosine receptor antagonist, and the primary way is blocking the receptor.
So how long does it take before the caffeine actually starts working and kicking in? If I'm starting to feel sleepy, will it take a long time? And how long can I expect for this to happen?
It actually works pretty quickly. Caffeine can occur or at least make you feel more alert within about 15 minutes, but it reaches peak concentration within 30 minutes to 1 hour. And so one way to hack your body's physiology is, let's say for example, it's 1 o'clock or 2 p.m. and you're starting to feel sleepy. What you can do is you can take a cup of coffee and then you can take a quick power nap right away for 20 to 30 minutes. Remember that when you sleep, your body flushes out adenosine, right? And it takes about 30 to 60 minutes for caffeine to kick in. So you take your power nap, your body gets rid of the adenosine, a small portion of it, and then when you wake up, caffeine starts to kick in your body and it starts to reach its peak. So you get that double effect and you actually feel more alert after you wake up from your power nap. Now, caffeine is quickly absorbed in the stomach and the small intestines, but if you want a hit of caffeine quicker, what you can do is have it absorbed through the buccal mucosa in your mouth, because your mouth has a lot of blood vessels. So if you chew on caffeine gum, then it can get absorbed right through your mouth into your blood circulation, and you get the effects of caffeine a lot faster than if you drink coffee and have it digested through your stomach and intestines.
That totally makes sense. I always hear that absorption through our mouth is really quick. So how long does the effects of caffeine actually last? And is there any point when I should stop drinking caffeine so I can go to sleep?
That's a great question. I think many people have that question. So the half-life of caffeine is about 5 hours. The half-life means how long it takes for a substance to have half of the amount. So for example, when I talk about the half-life of caffeine being about 5 hours, then if you start drinking coffee, let's say at 11 a.m. in the morning, and we say that it takes about 30 to 60 minutes to reach peak concentration in your blood. So around 12 p.m., let's say you have that full caffeine running around in your circulation, and it's 40 milligrams of caffeine in your bloodstream at that time. 5 hours later at 5 p.m., you have half that amount. So it'll be 20 milligrams. And then another 5 hours, you have half that amount. So it'll be 10 milligrams. Now, this is just the average half-life. Some people are fast metabolizers. Some people are slow metabolizers. And remember that caffeine is metabolized through your liver. If you are a fast metabolizer, then caffeine gets out of your system quickly and you're just drinking coffee and caffeine all day. If you are a slow metabolizer, then the half-life of caffeine is a little bit longer, so it's still in your system. And so these people may be more sensitive to the effects of caffeine. The general rule of thumb is you want to stop all caffeine or coffee use at 12 p.m. if you want to get a good night's rest sleep at night. But if you're a slow metabolizer, then you may consider stopping coffee and caffeine a little bit earlier than that so that you can still sleep soundly at night.
That's really fascinating about the effects of caffeine on sleep and alertness. But what other effects can caffeine have on the body that's not just regarding sleep?
So some people use coffee or caffeine to relieve headaches. Whenever you have a migraine or whenever you have tension headaches, the blood vessels in your head may be a little bit more engorged. And so when you drink coffee or take caffeine, what it does is that it acts as a vasoconstrictor. So it narrows the blood vessels in your head, and that can provide headache relief. And if you combine caffeine with ibuprofen or Tylenol, the effect of headache alleviation is increased by 40%. And when you go out in the stores and you look through the pharmacy aisles and you see Excedrin, that's actually a combination of caffeine, aspirin, and Tylenol. And so that helps for people who have migraine and tension type headaches. Now, if you're drinking coffee or any type of tea, what happens is that you might pee a little bit more. Caffeine acts as a diuretic, so you're losing volume in your body. If you're not keeping yourself hydrated throughout the day, then you'll be dehydrated, and that can cause headaches. So just make sure if you're drinking coffee or tea that you are drinking a lot of fluids throughout the day. If you're a regular caffeine user, you drink coffee every single day, then watch out for something called medication overuse or rebound headaches. So if you stop caffeine abruptly, or some people who drink high doses of caffeine and they stop within a few hours, they can start having headaches because of that as the caffeine is wearing out of their system. And you can get this rebound effect just as low as 100 milligrams of coffee per day, or 100 milligrams of caffeine, I would say, per day. Now, the safe limit for adults, healthy adults, for caffeine is 400 milligrams, but you can start getting rebound headaches just as low as 100 milligrams. And if you stop caffeine completely, then you'll have the peak rebound side effects within 1 to 2 days, and you may be more irritable, depressed, low energy. The most common symptom, of course, is headache, but you can have all these symptoms and it can last for about a week or so, and then after that, it will just kind of go away. So just watch out if you're a daily caffeine user, that if you are going to stop caffeine, then taper down slowly so that you reduce the risk of rebound headaches and medication overuse.
That's a lot of caffeine. When I drink caffeine, I do sometimes feel jittery and nervous, but what is actually happening?
Yeah, so this goes back to the adenosine receptors. Remember that adenosine attaches to adenosine receptors. Again, caffeine works in the brain and the heart. And so what happens is that when caffeine blocks the adenosine receptors in the brain, it causes excitation of the brain, and this stimulates the adrenal gland to produce adrenaline, which is our fight or flight hormones, right? In normal doses of caffeine, then you may have a more fight response, right? You're ready to fight back and attack whatever's in front of you. You're more focused. You're able to do your work. You're able to do your job. But at high doses of caffeine, then this really revs up the sympathetic nervous system. And so you may be in more flight mode. What happens is that when you drink a lot of caffeine, your heart rate increases. and you're also more aware of your surroundings. So your senses are a little bit heightened, and you're aware of your surroundings and what's going on inside your body. So imagine that you notice that you may have a little bit of palpitations and your senses are heightened. So you notice your heart rate beating faster. And so you worry about that. You're like, oh my gosh, is something going on with me? Other things is that you may hyperventilate. And remember, in the fight or flight response, blood is diverted away from your vital organs and more towards your muscles and your arms and your legs. So you're ready to fight or flee. And so the combination of all of this, you're feeling more tremors, or you're feeling more shaky, and you're feeling more jittery, like you mentioned earlier, and you're feeling like your heart rate is increased. All of these things gives you the sense of anxiety and you feel nervous, but this is really basically caffeine acting on your sympathetic nervous system. And just because of your mind, what happens is that you feel uneasy in your body, you feel a little bit more anxious.
I definitely don't want to drink that much caffeine to feel that way. But what about athletic performance? I do know like a lot of athletes use pre-workout that contains caffeine, and you mentioned that blood flow is diverted to the muscle and your heart rate increases. Do people use caffeine to help them with exercise performance in general?
Yeah, so it can improve sports performance. The Olympics actually banned caffeine from 1980 to 2004. And you can be thrown out of competition if they found that the urine level of caffeine in your urine is about 12 micrograms per ml or above. Now, to put this in perspective, that's still about 8 shots of espresso, right? Taken within a few hours, that's a lot. And so I'm not sure how many athletes are going and taking that amount of caffeine before their trials. But the thing is that the fact that the Olympics banned it means that it was a big deal, that they think that this is a sports or fitness enhancer. Now, the Olympics are not banning it. They're just monitoring it closely to make sure that people don't abuse caffeine too much. Now, caffeine has been shown to improve muscle contraction. We talked about the skeletal muscles. It can improve the contraction of the heart. It can improve your reaction time, so you're a little bit faster. It can also delay fatigue, so you can go for longer without feeling tired. And if you take caffeine right before short-term intense exercise like HIIT training, high interval intensity training that can last 5 minutes or so, there is improved performance with that. And it can also improve endurance exercise, meaning that if you're a long distance runner or a cyclist, it can make you go longer. And the thought is that caffeine spares glycogen. So whenever you exercise, your muscles need fuel. It needs glucose so that it can burn it to continue going. And if you do long endurance exercises, then what happens is that caffeine, it mobilizes the fatty acids instead. It spares the glycogen. So your body can keep on going, and you're actually breaking down or burning fatty acids for the energy source instead of the glycogen that your muscles need. So if you're planning to go on a 10-mile run and you start to gas out at 9 miles, then the next time, maybe make yourself a cup of coffee before you run. Some athletes like to drink coffee in the morning, not just because of the performance enhancing effects, but because caffeine also works as a bowel movement or a laxative. So caffeine works on the smooth muscles of your gut. It encourages peristalsis or contractions of your gut. So you're more likely to have a bowel movement if you drink coffee or caffeine. And so if you wake up in the morning and you're trying to go out for your long distance run and you drink your cup of coffee and you have a bowel movement, then you feel good, you're flushed out, your muscles are ready to go, and you're ready to go out for your morning early run.
Thank you for that visual and answering my questions about caffeine. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Pretty much nothing else, but since you are our financial guru and I do have a cup of coffee here, I hear people say that you shouldn't spend money on a $5 cup of coffee, and you should save that money, and if you save that money, it will grow and you become rich just by not drinking a $5 cup of coffee every day. What are your thoughts on this? Can I actually get rich by not drinking coffee?
I think there's lots of thoughts I have on this in multiple scenarios. I know, just because you don't drink that cup of coffee doesn't mean it's going to just create money out of nowhere. But let's just look at one point right now. We know that one cup of coffee roughly costs around $5. And if we took $5 per coffee times 30 days in a month, then that will equivalent to $150 per month we're spending on coffee. and then $150 times 12 months would be $1,800 per year annually. So if you took that money and didn't spend it on coffee, but saved it and invested instead, and we took our return rate of around 7%, then if we started at 25 years old investing that money, that cup of coffee that costs $5 will be actually around 5 times the amount. So it's actually costing you around $25 when we look at the interest that could be built with it. If we go ahead and look overall in the general view of investing that balance over 40 years, then you would in the end have created an end balance of $370,000. But that's just one scenario. I do want to take a look at another scenario. If you do have any sort of debt that's you want to pay off a lot, like a credit card debt that has really high interest rates of around 10 to 30% annually, then I would actually recommend that you go a little bit cheaper on the coffee and actually make it at home instead. And this will allow you to have more income to go towards paying that high interest debt first. And when we look at this further, the reason why I would say that is because when we account for investing, we earn around 7% interest rate. But when we compare to that with the money that we'll be losing off of credit card, 10 to 30%, that's a lot more money that we'll be losing compared to making. So I would pay off that credit card debt first. And then in the end, if you do have all your credit card high interest rate debt paid off first, your budgets are created and you are investing and you paid yourself first, meaning that you invested your money already into your Roth IRA or 401k, and you save what you need to save for. And lastly, you really do love that cup of coffee, then I would say go ahead and enjoy that $5 cup of coffee guilt-free.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for showing us how just small sums of money can build up over time. And yeah, if you have high interest credit card debt and it's very high interest rate, it's probably better to aggressively pay that off quickly. Maybe buy cheap coffee until you can pay off all your debt. And then after that, what do you want to do? Go ahead and spend your money on that cup of coffee if you truly love it. Now, if you guys have any questions about caffeine, money, or if you have a favorite coffee or latte combination, go ahead and comment down below. And that's all that we have for today. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.